Order, order. We now start with questions. Secretary of State for the Home Department, Elsie Blundell.
Happy New Year, Mr Speaker. Question number 1.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and Happy New Year to you. Exploitation of workers is, of course, unacceptable. Overseas recruitment for social care visas closed in July 2025 following significant concerns about the exploitation of those workers. We have revoked record numbers of sponsor licences to prevent exploitative employers from sponsoring migrant workers. The government is establishing the Fair Work Agency to provide a more cohesive and streamlined response to exploitation across all sectors.
Blundell.
Mr Speaker, in recent weeks I've heard from several social care workers in my constituency who have each outlined to me the profound uncertainty that they face regarding their employer-sponsored visas, despite the critical role that these workers play in supporting the most vulnerable in our communities. What consideration has therefore been given to the idea that these employer-sponsored visas be replaced with sector-wide schemes to prevent continued poor practice from some employers?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for her question. This government acknowledges and is grateful for the significant contribution that health and social care workers put in, day out, across the country. However, it was right that we ended overseas recruitment of care workers due to the high levels of abuse that many workers were experiencing at the hands of dodgy employers. And there are no current plans to replace the current sponsorship arrangement for care workers.
Vikki Slade.
Speaker, I'm disappointed to hear that the Minister isn't looking at a common certificate of sponsorship, but I wonder whether he has made a decision with his colleagues on whether care workers will be considered in the same group as NHS workers when it comes to the faster route, because otherwise we're going to end up with a massive hole in our services, with social care yet again the Cinderella service to the NHS.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank my honourable friend for this question. We must remember that tens of thousands came into the country to fill hundreds of thousands came into the country to fill just tens of thousands of jobs. So this is the right approach here, and there are no plans at this time, but the mechanism of delivery is currently at consultation. That closes on the 12th of February.
Mr Speaker, my constituent, a migrant care worker, was asked to pay £3,600 to her employer, a private care company, for a sponsorship application that never happened. The company is now keeping the money with no legal reasons and refusing to engage with my constituents. This is not the only case I'm aware of. Will the Minister take stronger action, including suspending licences and prosecuting companies that exploit vulnerable workers?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Thank you for the honourable friend for his question. It is important that we hold dodgy employers to account, and there are penalties in place for those who are employing illegal workers, but also potential prison sentences in terms of illegal working. And in terms of the care sector, we did see hundreds of thousands come into the country to fill a very small amount of jobs. So it's the right decision to stop this social care visa at this point.
Gideon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Health and social care workers fear not only exploitation, but also that promises may be retroactively broken by the government. Will the Minister confirm that health and social care workers at Musgrove Park Hospital in my constituency who are promised indefinite leave to remain after 5 years, will he promise that that will be honoured?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. When visas end, people should leave the country, and that is what this government will do. There is no route for these people unless they switch, and at this point that is of course open. So if the visa ends, then they must leave the country.
Question
number 4, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This government will close every asylum hotel. We're making progress in this regard with reduced spend in this area by a third. We're restoring order and control to the system, speeding up case working, maximising the use of our estate, including ex-military sites, and continuing to increase returns.
Lewis Cocking.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This is my 9th question about the asylum hotel in my constituency, and I'm still waiting for a clear answer. The Prime Minister said yesterday we would see evidence of hotels being closed soon, but plans to move asylum seekers into new council housing would solve nothing and be an insult to millions on the waiting list. My constituents want the asylum hotel, my constituency of Broxbourne, closed immediately. So will the Minister meet with me to explain how and when this asylum hotel will close?
Minister.
Well, the honourable gentleman knows, I'm sure he remembers with a degree of pain from the general election, the commitment that we made to close the hotels, of course, the vast majority of which opened by colleagues on opposition benches. We will close those hotels within this Parliament. I know colleagues will always want a specific date. It's right that we bring these things forward when we are ready and able to do so. On his point on a meeting, of course, I'll be very happy to do so.
Taunton Crag.
Happy New Year to you. I wonder if the Minister can update the House on the Cameron Barracks in Inverness and plans to move some asylum seekers to that town.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for that question. As been said from this dispatch box by myself and the Home Secretary, we are looking at ex-military sites, of which he names one. We are doing all the feasibility assessments there and at Crowborough Training Camp, and when we've made that final decision, we'll announce that in the right way. But that approach has to be the right one, moving people away from often high street, very public accommodation, which has significant cohesion impact, but also local economic impact, and pivoting away to larger military sites, I think, is clearly a better option.
Wishart.
Those protesting at hotels are usually there because they've been served misinformation and far-right political rhetoric by those that have sinister political agendas. One way we found to tackle this is to give proper information, tell the stories of what drove people to these countries, about the real conditions in their homelands. Will the Minister consider doing a similar type of initiative to dampen down some of the misinformation and terrible political rhetoric we get at these asylum hotels?
Well, I put absolutely no truck in those who seek to exploit the vulnerabilities of others for their own ends. I know my country, I know my city of Nottingham, that when the system is ordered and controlled, our communities step up to meet the moment to provide shelter for people who need it. But that simply cannot be done whilst that system is disordered, does lack that control, and has very public manifestations of failure, such as hotels being used for this purpose.
On around.
Mr Speaker, the Cresta Court Hotel in my constituency has been used to house asylum seekers for just over a year. This is bad for the taxpayer, bad for my community, and bad for those themselves going through the system. And as I've said to the Minister now on many occasions, the Cresta, like all hotels housing asylum seekers, must be returned to normal use as soon as possible. So as we seek to build a fair, safe and just immigration and asylum system out of the wreckage left to us by the benches opposite, could he provide an update on the government's work to make this happen?
I'm grateful for that question. The honourable gentleman knows I know his constituency well. I know of where he speaks very well. We're very clear that hotel and all hotels being used for this purpose must shut. I know colleagues will want information as soon as possible. They may not have to wait too much longer, but it's right that we do this in an orderly and controlled way to make sure that the system works.
What's Kieran Miller?
Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I'm not surprised that the Home Office thought that Wealdon Green and Lib Dem run council would be a soft target to move asylum seekers to, considering that co-leaders previously seemed more concerned with Calais than they did about Crowborough. But moving asylum seekers into the neighbouring constituency, the constituency of Madam Deputy Speaker's Crowborough training camp, will displace the cadets that are making good use of that facility. And as I understand it, won't save any money. So given it won't save any money, what is the benefit of moving them there?
Well, the honourable gentleman knows that this is not purely a financial arrangement. The impact of hotels and communities in this country, we know, has a profound social and economic one. We believe that big military sites are a better place to house. I appreciate that that is, of course, a point of difference, but the honourable gentleman needs to know that when he advocates against our proposals on larger military sites, he's saying yes to the use of hotels across the community, and to say anything otherwise, I'm afraid, simply does not stand up. That is the choice. His view is very clear, as is ours.
Tom Page.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I recently visited an asylum hotel in my constituency and have definitely spoken with people living there and the community surrounding the hotel. It's clear that ending the use of these hotels for asylum seekers is in the best interest of asylum seekers, but also the neighbouring community and the taxpayer. We've had many conversations with this, the Minister and I. Can the Minister confirm when the Government will begin ending the use of asylum hotels in Bournemouth?
I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman for that question. I can assure his constituents and honourable and right honourable colleagues that the honourable gentleman persists with me on this issue on virtually a daily basis, including over the Christmas period, which was very welcome indeed. I couldn't be clearer. We do not want to see hotels in Bournemouth used for this purpose. That is, as my honourable friend said, a purpose of the wreckage that was left by the previous government. We want that to change. I know colleagues want information as soon as possible. I'm asking them to be a little bit patient, and it may not be too much longer before they start to hear news in this space.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Happy New Year to you. It's all well and good closing these asylum hotels, but they've got to go somewhere else. And the latest madcap idea, Mr. Speaker, we hear from the opposite benches, is to build council houses for illegal migrants crossing the Channel. Does the Minister think that will help smash the gangs?
I'm afraid the honourable gentleman should spend less time reading newspapers and more time listening to what's said in this chamber. He will have heard from me, he will have heard from my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, through our asylum policy statement, the most significant change to our asylum system in a generation far in my lifetime, because it's not just about managing those who need support in the here and now, it is reducing numbers. People seeking sanctuary in this country is up significantly at a time when it is down significantly across the European Union. We are seen as the golden ticket. We're going to reduce hotel. The honourable gentleman shouts from long range at me, and having been near him at the football, I know he has a pair of pipes on him when he wants to use them. But there is a reason, Mr. Speaker, why the honourable gentleman does not want to hear me answer the question, because he knows he'll get a serious answer, not a three-word answer, but one that says we are going to reduce the numbers of people who need support in this country. That's how we'll close the hotels.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Happy New Year to you and your team. I welcome the Minister's commitment to closing the Tory Asylum Hotel in Gloucester by the end of this Parliament. He'll know that I've raised with him in the past about the plight of families who live next door to that hotel, who are having to deal with an increase in antisocial behaviour, also constant protests on their front door, and YouTubers turning up trying to get a Vox Pop reaction at 11 o'clock at night. What support can we give to those families who are having to deal with a hotel on their doorstep that they didn't plan on having when they moved in?
We are very mindful that whatever the nature of the supported accommodation, it should tread as lightly as possible on the community and on its neighbours. I would say to the honourable gentleman, we're standing up a capacity within the Home Office to make sure that local police are sharing information, and we're sharing information with local police around possible vulnerabilities, particularly in some of the cases he's talking about there. So if he's able to share that information to make sure that we've got that, and we're making sure local authorities, local police, alongside ourselves in national government, are supporting the community to the fullest degree possible.
Chris Phillips, Shadow Home Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Happy New Year. The Minister keeps saying he intends to end the use of asylum hotels, but the most recent figures show that under this government there are now more illegal immigrants in asylum hotels than there were at the time of the election. The numbers are going up. 41,000 illegal immigrants crossed the Channel last year, a 40% increase on 2023. Does the Minister agree with the Prime Minister's admission in an astonishing letter to President Macron that this government has no deterrent to stop these crossings? Isn't the truth this? This government has no control of illegal immigration, and the only way to stop the crossings is to leave the ECHR and deport anyone arriving here illegally within a week.
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman, I remember he was sat right in that seat. I'm afraid the Leader of the Opposition had moved him down a seat for this. But he heard when my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, talked about building the deterrent factor for this country. He was there because he was opposing the legislation when we passed the legislation on the Borders Act that passed only in the last few days of the last parliamentary year. That is part of our deterrent. He knows it because he opposed it. Now, so this idea that instead we should leave international agreements where all our returns agreements will therefore need to be re-entered into, I'm afraid is for the birds. We're getting on with serious action. They're just getting on with their press releases.
Paul Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 5.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I'll group this with questions 19 and 23. Rural crime is a scourge on our communities, and this government is taking action to tackle it. We are improving the safety of rural communities with tougher measures on equipment theft, cracking down on antisocial behaviour, cracking down on farm theft and fly tipping, backed by over £800,000 of funding for the specialist National Rural and Wildlife Crime Policing Units.
Paul Davis.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The most common and impactful rural crime issues in West Yorkshire include the theft of farm machinery, fuel, livestock, and incidents of livestock worrying, wildlife and environmental offences. The increased funding for specialist units such as the National Rural Crime Unit and the National Wildlife Crime Unit are absolutely welcomed, as it will help coordinate and support police forces across England and Wales to target rural crime. Can I ask the Minister, what other actions can this government take to help tackle these crimes?
Minister.
Thank you. I'm delighted to say that since the last Home Office questions, the MPCC launched their rural and wildlife crime strategy, which we absolutely support. This government is going further with new provisions in the Crime and Policing Bill to introduce powers for the police to enter and search premises where items have been electronically tracked and are reasonably believed to have been stolen. And we will be implementing the Equipment Theft Prevention Act, which will strengthen measures to tackle the theft and resale of high-value equipment, particularly for use in agricultural settings.
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Happy New Year to you. Waste crime is increasingly a concern in rural areas and often has links to organised and serious crime. Just last week, the Eastern Daily Press revealed how in Norfolk there were nearly 1,300 reports of waste crime in a 5-year period, but in the same time frame, just 2 people have been convicted for these offences. In my South West Norfolk constituency, we had one case of 250 bales of DIY waste dumped onto a farm with an estimated removal cost of £250,000. Can the Minister confirm what more the department can do to help tackle waste crime in rural areas?
Minister.
My honourable friend speaks of a very serious crime and we need to be going further. The last year the government announced a huge crackdown on cowboy waste operators to tackle fly tipping. To support local authorities, we through the Crime and Policing Bill are introducing a new power to issue statutory guidance on fly tipping enforcement, and there is going to be a new 5-year imprisoned terms for waste cowboys. We need to crack down on this crime.
Goldsborough.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and Happy New Year to you and your team. Within rural communities like mine, heritage crime is a huge issue. We can boast some of the jewels in England's crown, from Venta Icenorum, the Roman town, to Windham Abbey, to also the Wooden Henge within Arminghall. But because of that, that puts us more at risk of those heritage crime. Will the Minister meet with me to discuss how we can train scrap metal dealers to be more aware of the damage that this does, and also how we can record the statistics more appropriately so we can give the police the resources they need?
Minister.
My honourable friend is very lucky to have such wonderful places in his constituency, and of course I will meet with him. This is very important. We are supporting the work of Historic England on a number of issues to tackle heritage crime, but I'm sure we can go further, and I look forward to talking to him about it.
Mr
Speaker, and Happy New Year. In my constituency of Stratford-on-Avon, residents are seeing car theft and related burglaries continue to rise, and nationally, almost 4 in 5 car thefts go unsolved. This is not low-level rural crime. This is organised, highly profitable, deeply disruptive and upsetting for families and businesses who rely on their vehicles. Will the Minister set out what steps the government is taking to tackle organised vehicle crime, and whether they will back Liberal Democrat proposals for a specialist national unit to work with forces like Warwickshire Police to crack down on car crime?
Minister.
The Honourable Lady points to a very significant crime, and of course through our neighbourhood policing guarantee we will be making sure there's more neighbourhood police in our communities. We will obviously continue to work with car manufacturers to make sure we can design crime out as much as we can, and I'm very happy to talk to her about any other proposals she has, but this government is investing more in policing, cracking down on crime.
Danny Chambers, Dr. Danny Chambers.
Mr Speaker. One of the crimes that most concerns farmers in Hampshire and around the rest of the country is that of illegal meat imports. Last year, Mr Speaker, I visited the port of Dover, where they showed me some of the illegal meat that had been seized. And this is not only a public health issue, but it also puts the UK livestock industry at risk of a notifiable disease outbreak like foot and mouth disease. Mr Speaker, if I were caught driving legal meat into the UK in a lorry, the authorities wouldn't have the powers to arrest me, they would not be allowed to seize the lorry, but they would have to clean my lorry and disinfect it at the taxpayer's expense before sending me on my way. Does the Minister agree with me that this is absolutely crazy? Yes. And will she look at how we can equip the hard-working teams at the ports with the powers needed to provide a proper deterrent to stop this meat coming in?
The honourable gentleman points to an issue that, of course, is very important. We need to make sure we don't have illegal meat coming into the country. My colleagues in DEFRA and my colleagues here on the front bench, of course, will take these issues seriously, and I'm very happy to take that further and come back to him.
Tim Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Happy New Year to you. Only 1 in 200 police officers in England and Wales are allocated to rural crime teams. In Cumbria, it's even worse. Only 5 officers in 2024 were allocated to our rural crime team. Given what people have said already in the Chamber today, isn't it clear that people who live in very rural communities not only are subject to crime, but subject to an even more concentrated sense of the fear of crime when you know that you could be 20, 30 miles away from the nearest officer? Isn't it time for the government to think again about rural crime and make sure that every community, particularly rural counties like Cumbria, have a dedicated rural crime team that is bigger than 5 officers?
Minister.
Our neighbourhood policing guarantee applies to rural areas as well as urban areas, and of course the 3,000 increase in police numbers that we'll see by next March will go across the whole country. But he points to a very specific challenge. I was with Thames Valley Police, where they have a rural crime task force just a few weeks ago, and the work that they're doing, the expertise that they're bringing to the challenges that they face, the particular challenges that we face in rural communities, was very impressive, and I would like to see other forces following their lead.
Tom Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 6.
Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I will answer questions 6 and 12 together. Alongside restoring order and control of our borders, we will open new, safe and legal routes for refugees and displaced people who are fleeing danger. We are currently developing routes for refugee students and workers alongside a community sponsorship route, and a cap will be set each year in Parliament, and further details on the design of these routes will be set out in due course.
Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud of our country's history of offering refuge to those fleeing persecution and want this to continue, as do many of my constituents in East Worthing and Shoreham. Can the Home Secretary set out how she will establish safe and legal routes for people to do so, whilst taking action to secure our borders from the criminal gangs profiting from dangerous small boat crossings?
Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for his question. Let me say to him that first point to acknowledge is this country will always offer sanctuary to those that are fleeing danger, but the public rightly expect a system that is fair and one that restores control, and that's why we are reducing the incentives that draw people here illegally, making it easier to remove those who have no right to be here, and toughening control at our borders, alongside developing safe and legal routes which will provide the proper option for those who are fleeing danger to seek sanctuary in our country.
Muraz, Blessed Nuath Dar, Happy New Year, Mr. Speaker, and can I just take this moment to thank the Minister in his previous role for getting the Cornish language through Part 3 status from that excellent organisation, the Council of Europe. Before Christmas, I met with care workers from my Camborne, Redruth and Hale constituency who came to the UK through legal routes. They shared their anxieties with me about the changes to immigration policies affecting the care sector and other key worker sectors, specifically for migrants who are already partway through the 5-year leave to remain qualification process, working and paying their taxes in the UK now. Can the Secretary of State confirm when the new fast-track leave to remain process will be established following the end of the 12th of February consultation?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his question. Of course, safe and legal routes relates to those that we would accept as refugees before they enter this country, in order to, of course, drive down on those who seek to do so illegally. He refers to routes for people who come to this country to work, and I think it is right that we acknowledge, as we've done so in our reforms to settlement, our planned reforms to settlement, that settlement itself in this country is a privilege, it's not a right, has to be earned. I think it's perfectly proper for this country to be able to set the rules for how settlement is earned, and we have responded to the fact that in previous considerations of how many people might arrive on the country to work on particular routes, and the early discussion on care workers I think is particularly pertinent, more people have arrived than were originally anticipated, and it is right therefore that we change our approach, but we are consulting on how those changes are delivered. He rightly points out that consultation ends on the 12th of February. After that point, we will set out our proposals for delivering these reforms.
Edward Lee, Father of the House.
Yeah. Of course, we're all proud of our historic record in welcoming genuine political refugees who apply in the proper way. But I'm sure the Home Secretary would agree that this policy, this humane policy, is being entirely negated by illegal boat crossings and driving people mad and putting people at risk. So will she do the humane thing and seek an urgent derogation from the Refugee Convention and the Convention of Human Rights so that we can arrest and detain and deport these people? And by the way, if she did that, announced it now, Labour would shoot up 5 points in the polls, the Prime Minister's position would be safe. Does she support all that?
Well, I think it's important that changes are made to to securing our borders that are about actually genuinely securing those borders and not about individual party political fortunes. And certainly under my watch, this government and the Home Office will always put the securing of our borders first, regardless of what that might mean for individuals and polling positions and so on. I believe that the reforms that we have put out already in the asylum policy statement, I know he was there, he took part in that debate in November of last year. Those are the right reforms, it's the right package of reforms. I think that we can make reforms to our system, our legal system, as well as policy changes that will secure our borders without requiring a derogation from international law.
While the Home Secretary thinks about the safe and legal routes, my constituents are very concerned about the unsafe and illegal routes. So can the Home Secretary update the House on how many gangs have been smashed in the first 18 months of this government?
Well, hundreds of individuals involved in gang organised crime groups have already been pursued through law enforcement. There have been 4,000 disruptions of organised crime group operations, and 22,000 illegal crossings have been prevented.
Dave Duggan.
Question number 8, Mr. Speaker.
We take theft from commercial vehicles extremely seriously. These crimes are often committed by organised criminals who seek to profit from tool theft, and we are supporting law enforcement as they seek to disrupt these networks. Courts already have tough sentencing powers in this area, with a maximum prison sentence of 7 years for theft and up to life for violent robbery.
Happy New Year to you, Mr. Speaker, but unfortunately for the haulage industry up and down these islands, 2026 promises to be a year of increasing freight crime from haulage operators up and down these islands, whether it's Alan Davy Forfar, Taylors of Forfar or McLaughlin's of Perth, who operate up and down from Scotland to England. When they park up at night, they are at risk from having their loads stolen. This is a growing problem, and I think would benefit from an aggravated theft from commercial vehicles offence. I've petitioned the Scottish Government on the very same issue, and I urge the Minister again to look at this, please.
Minister.
Of course, always happy to keep things under review. We currently don't think that is the answer, but that isn't to say there isn't a problem, which there absolutely is. And I think I'm shortly to be hosting some people from the industry to talk about what more is required. I think he's absolutely right that this is a growing, significant problem that we need to tackle.
Jonathan Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency, we're both rural and urban areas, and I've had numerous people from rural areas contact me about theft from commercial vehicles, including in Corndon in my constituency. So can I ask that as we move forward with our police recruitment plans to get 13,000 more police officers by the end of this Parliament, we make sure that there are enough officers in rural areas to address this issue. It's particularly pertinent in those places.
My right honourable friend is right to raise this. As I said earlier, our neighbourhood policing guarantee applies to all parts of the country, and it's very important that we understand the particular challenges that rural communities face and that we are robustly supporting our police who are getting increased funding this year and will continue to be supported by us to make sure we are tackling these very significant crimes.
Catherine Foot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 9.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government remains committed to supporting Ukraine following Russia's illegal invasion. More than 300,000 Ukrainians have been offered temporary sanctuary through the dedicated Ukraine schemes, and Ukrainians can still apply to the Homes for Ukraine scheme with a UK sponsor.
Vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Blwyddyn Nwyd Dda. And thank you, Minister. Monmouthshire hosts over 400 refugees from Ukraine. Most of the adults work locally and some have started businesses. Their children are settled in schools and they, of course, contribute hugely to our community. But Ukrainians in Abergavenny, a proud town of sanctuary, as well as our towns in Chepstow and Caldicott, say that their temporary status can create practical hurdles, such as housing or university grant applications, because they may suddenly be uprooted. What is the Minister doing through the visa system to ensure that refugees from Ukraine have the necessary support and the stability to thrive here in the UK long term?
Minister. I thank my honourable friend for raising this important concern. Ukrainians in Monmouthshire and across the UK have full access to work, healthcare, education, and this government acted swiftly to introduce a further extension of 3.5 years to provide certainty. Ukrainian visa applications are processed swiftly and e-visas can be easily accessed online to prove their status. The Department of Education is working closely with higher education providers to ensure they support Ukrainians in maintaining stable access to their studies. But we have to be clear, Mr. Speaker, that this bespoke route offers temporary sanctuary. This balances the immediate needs of Ukrainians with the future needs of Ukraine as it rebuilds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Happy New Year to you. Bath welcomes refugees, has supported over 800 refugees to integrate and access vital services such as housing, and indeed Bath is another place where Ukrainian refugees have received a very warm welcome. The Public and Commercial Services Union report Welcoming Growth highlights the importance of employment support and English language provision in enabling refugees to contribute to society. What considerations has the department given to these recommendations to support my Bath Ukraine?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said earlier, those here on these bespoke routes do have access to full work, healthcare and education, but I will take that away to my team after this session.
Question 10, Mr. Speaker.
Home Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is far too much duplication and waste in policing. I want to see police on the beat, not stuck behind a desk doing paperwork. We must also embrace the potential of technology to transform policing. The government's already established a police efficiency programme which will save £354 million and free up millions of officer hours by 2029. And in the coming weeks, I'll be setting out further reforms in a white paper on policing.
Rachel Hobb, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bedfordshire Police have been using both modern technology and AI to ensure they make best use of resources over the medium term. However, Bedfordshire faces a disproportionate level of demand due to complex and serious and organised crime and relies on special grant support to tackle these challenges. Can the Secretary of State confirm she'll ensure these special grants are protected for Bedfordshire Police and when we might expect an announcement on this?
Well, firstly, let me say that I recognise the challenges posed by serious and organised crime, and I thank Bedfordshire Police for their tireless work to tackle the issue. Applications for special grants in 2026-27 will be considered shortly and details confirmed with Police and Crime Commissioners in due course.
Shocker Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and a Happy New Year to you. In addition to police officers, our police staff play a vital role in fighting crime. However, a freeze in recruitment of police staff has led to police officers being taken off the beat to fill support staff roles. This means less police officers on our streets. So can the Secretary of State shed some light on the situation and commit to relaxing the rules on recruiting more support staff?
Well, that's why we've got our neighbourhood policing guarantee to get those police officers back on the beat and in neighbourhoods, providing that reassurance and dealing with exactly the types of crimes that we know are going up and which have a huge and deleterious effect on our communities. And of course, total funding for territorial police forces and counter-terrorism policing will be up to £19.5 billion, which is an increase compared to 25-26.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The APCC
have today said that this government's funding settlement leaves our police forces with a shortfall of almost £500 million. Already we've seen the number of police officers fall under this government, and this could make it worse. With crime on the rise and prisoners being released early, will the government commit to getting police numbers back up to the level they were at before they came to office?
Well, Mr Speaker, it would be a bit easier to take the honourable gentleman more seriously if it wasn't true that 94% of the reduction in police officers that he refers to occurred when his government was in office. In March 2024 to June of 2024, before the general election, there was a reduction of 1,232 officers. So I won't take any lessons from him, and the details of the police funding settlement will be clarified by the end of this month.
That's Max Wilkinson, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Happy New Year to you from the Liberal Democrats. The Tories left us without enough police to tackle burglaries, car thefts and shoplifting. People voted for change, but between March 24 and 25, that legacy and the new government's actions meant that we lost more than 4,000 frontline police officers. Will the Home Secretary reassure us and reassure the country that the next set of police numbers in March 26 will show a net increase in frontline police compared to when this government took office?
Well, I would have hoped that he'd have welcomed the neighbourhood policing guarantee, which is designed to exactly deal with the problem that he recognises, which is a decrease in officers visible in our communities, and that is what this government is setting right, with our pledge to have 13,000 by the end of this Parliament and 3,000 by the end of March of this year, which we are on track to deliver. As I said earlier, the final details of the police funding settlement will be clear at the end of the month, and I will be setting out my proposals on wider policing reform in a white paper in a few weeks' time.
Monica Harding.
Question 11, please, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, with permission, I'll group this with question 21. As part of the neighbourhood policing guarantee, every neighbourhood now has a named and contactable officer dedicated to tackling local issues, with forces increasing patrols in town centres and other hotspots based on local demand. We have also made £200 million available to police forces this financial year to kickstart the journey towards delivering 13,000 additional neighbourhood policing personnel by the end of this Parliament, including 3,000 by March 2026.
Monica Harding.
Mr Speaker, and a Happy New Year to you. Can I pay tribute to the work of the police in my constituency of Esher and Walton, who have got the rate of solved burglaries up by 84%. However, while the local police are doing a great job catching burglaries, they tell me that the perception of being unable to bring them to justice is making their ability to tackle persistent offenders more difficult and equally impacting on the confidence of local residents. My constituents were incredulous recently when the borough commander told them that 2 individuals charged with burglary in December last year were given a date to appear for trial in September 2027. So what conversations is the Minister having with her counterparts in the Ministry of Justice to increase the number of Crown Court sitting days so that my constituents have confidence?
Minister.
The Honourable Lady highlights a problem that we inherited from the previous government is very considerable. We wouldn't deny that, and our colleagues in the Ministry of Justice, we are talking to them from the Home Office every day about how we manage this situation and improve and increase the speed with which people are brought to justice. In this government, we want to see everyone who commits a crime do the time.
Luke Murphy.
And Happy New Year to you and your team. I welcome the government's neighbourhood policing guarantee, which puts named contactable officers in every community, and indeed the increased presence of patrols in the top of town in Basingstoke. But one of the issues the Minister will know that we face in Basingstoke, because we've corresponded on this issue, is the retention of officers, with locally trained officers moving to higher paid forces, for example, in London. Can I ask the Minister, what more can the department do, what more can I do to ensure that we improve the retention of officers in Basingstoke, including to support community policing?
Minister.
My old friend makes a really good point. It wasn't just public confidence in policing that fell under the last government. It was also the way that the police feel about how we treat them and how we therefore retain them. Through the white paper process and the police reform, one of the aspects we're looking at is how do we make sure we are training police, we are treating police, we are giving them the support that they need and enabling them to do the job that they want to do, not the bureaucracy that blights a lot of the time that they spend. So he makes a really good point, and we are working very closely with the police bodies to make sure we get this right.
Katie Lamb, Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It is becoming increasingly apparent that West Midlands Police retrospectively created a rationale and according to remarkable investigative work by the Sunday Times, false evidence to justify their predetermined decision to ban fans from the world's only Jewish state from going to a football match in Britain's second city. Does the Minister think that the Chief Constable of such a force can possibly be overseeing effective community policing? And how can he continue in his role?
Minister.
The Prime Minister, the Home Secretary and the whole government has been very clear that we believe that the wrong decision was made on this front, and we have asked the Inspector to look at what happened in two parts. One is what happened in particularly around this match itself, and a wider look at the police role when it comes to safety advisory groups and how these decisions are made. We had been expecting that information before the end of the year, but because the Home Affairs Select Committee has recalled and will be seeing again the West Mids Chief Constable tomorrow, it will be slightly delayed to take that into account. But we need to wait and see what the Inspector says, and that's what we will do, and that's the right thing to do, because they will be considering this in the round.
Christine Jardine.
Question number 14, please.
This government is determined to tackle all forms of hate crime. We have a robust legislative framework in place to respond to hate crimes which target race, religion, sexual orientation, disability and transgender identity. The Home Secretary has also commissioned an independent review of public order and hate crime legislation to ensure it remains effective, proportionate and fit for purpose.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I welcome the Minister's comments, as I welcome the Government's violence against women and girls strategy, including the confirmation that the Protection from Sex-Based Harassment in Public Act will commence in April. But we know that misogyny in particular runs deeper, and attitudes and actions throughout society and in social media are damaging to women. So as well as focusing on prevention and strategy in all these areas and tackling harassment, can the Minister outline today where we are with misogyny becoming a hate crime?
Yeah.
Minister.
As I said, there's a review that is being undertaken at the moment by Lord Ken MacDonald KC, who is looking at hate crime legislation in the round, and I hope that she will understand that we want to wait for that so that we can understand what those recommendations are before the Home Secretary makes decisions.
Speaker, I welcome the Government's commitment to tackling misogyny, but I'm sure Ministers will be as disgusted as I am by reports over recent weeks of users on the social media platform X be able to create sexualised images of women, including children, through its AI tool Grok. So what conversations are Ministers having across government to make sure we're clamping down on this vile practice and ensuring it simply will not be tolerated on our social media sites?
Minister.
My honourable friend and the Home Secretary who launched the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, obviously taking this issue very seriously, working across government, in particular with DSIT, on this issue.
Shadow Minister Alicia Kearns, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and Happy New Year. Women are overwhelmingly the victims of hate crimes online, but it's no surprise when we have companies promising that the purchase of a self-swab rape kit will deter rapists. This is plainly offensive and shifts the onus onto women and off the cowards who rape them. The kits are also inadmissible in court. We've already had a sexual assault of a child case collapse because of the use of a self-swab kit. For almost a year, rape charities have begged the government to take action, ban these dangerous kits and their dangerous narratives with them. So will the government work with me, support my campaign and commit to protect women from self-swab rape kits today?
Minister.
The Home Office shares the concerns set out by the law enforcement and healthcare professionals regarding the use of self-swabbing rape kits and are considering this matter very carefully. We always recommend attending a sexual assault referral centre to collect samples, regardless of whether you decide to report to the police.
We now go to Topicals, David Burton-Sampson.
And Happy New Year. Question number 1, please.
Mr Speaker, today the powers in the Border Security Act come into force. No thanks, I might add, to those opposite who voted against them at every opportunity. This Act has given vital new tools to law enforcement, with approaches that have been tried and tested in countering terrorism and will now be brought to bear on people smuggling gangs. From today at Manston, we'll be seizing mobile phones to gather vital intelligence to disrupt people smugglers. Those who plan small boat crossings face up to 5 years behind bars, while those who supply equipment to smugglers could be locked up for 16 years. Our work is beginning to take effect. Last year, we disrupted 22,000 small boat crossings. Disruptions were up 33%, and since coming to power, removals are over a fifth higher than under the previous government. I know we must do more. The challenge we face is great, but we will do whatever it takes to restore order and control to our borders.
Dave Burns-Sampson.
In my constituency of Southend Western Lee, I've launched the We Love Westcliff campaign, which, as well as promoting greater civic pride, aims to drive down antisocial behaviour such as fly tipping and drug dealing. Can my honourable friend outline what support the new neighbourhood policing teams will provide to help us achieve this goal?
Secretary.
Let me congratulate my honourable friend on his campaign. Essex Police have been allocated £4.5 million, which will fund an increase of 74 neighbourhood police officers in 25-26. They will provide visible and engaging police presence, build strong relationships with local communities and tackle the issues he has raised.
Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We now know that Allah Abd el-Fattah expressed racist, anti-white, anti-Semitic and violent views. Now, members of this government, and the last one, say they did not know about this beforehand, and of course I accept those assurances. But now we do know about these disgusting comments. Will the Home Secretary use her powers under Section 40, subsection 2 of the British Nationality Act 1981 to revoke his citizenship and deport him on the basis that he meets the statutory test set out in subsection 2, that he is, quote, not conducive to the public good?
Home Secretary.
Well, let me say firstly, Mr Speaker, those tweets and those comments are absolutely abhorrent, and I share the horror and revulsion felt across the country by all who have now seen and read them. The Shadow Home Secretary used to be the Immigration Minister, and he will know that the power to deprive an individual of their citizenship, which was, of course, in this case, granted by the previous government, is used in a very specific way to deal with those who pose the highest harm offenders, particularly serious and organised criminals, and those who pose a threat to national security, and I do not propose to change the basis on which those deprivation powers are used.
Is not conducive to the public good, and she could use that. Now, will the Home Secretary confirm she will use every legal mechanism to prevent the return to the United Kingdom of Shamima Begum, who chose to support the Daesh regime, which murdered civilians, raped thousands of women and girls, and killed people for being gay? And more broadly, does she agree that anyone espousing extremist, racist or anti-Semitic views or supporting terrorism and who is not a British citizen should be immediately deported from this country? She has those powers. Will she use them?
Home Secretary.
Well, let me be very clear, Mr Speaker, that the case in relation to Shamima Begum has been litigated by the previous government all the way to the UK Supreme Court, who did not hear the last appeal on this because all legal questions have been now dealt with. We have accepted that position, and our position as a government on this case will not change. We will robustly defend this at the European Court of Human Rights. You will know I can't give more detail on that case as it progresses because it is subject now to that litigation, but that is the approach that this government is taking, and we will defend the position that has already been set by all of our courts right up to the UK Supreme Court.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I recently met a group of care workers from Northwich who are here by the Health and Social Care Visa, who are undertaking vital work with great commitment and some personal sacrifice. They spoke passionately about the unfairness of applying the proposed changes to requirements for settled status retrospectively. What assessment has she made of the policy's compliance with the judgment in the case of HSMP Forum Limited versus the Secretary of State in 2008 in respect of ensuring that changes to immigration rules should not disadvantage those who had already made life-changing decisions based on the existing framework?
Minister.
In addition to what I laid out earlier in the House, the changes announced by the Home Secretary are subject to consultation, which is live and ends on the 12th of February. Any decision to implement these proposals will take full account of relevant legal precedent.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Max Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Home Secretary is turning heads by focusing on people arriving into this country, but the latest migration statistics show a worrying trend in the opposite direction. The number of working-age UK nationals leaving the country is concerning from an economic and from a demographic perspective. Why does the Home Secretary think they're leaving? Is it the disastrous Brexit legacy of the Tories, the terrifying prospect of a future Reform government, or her own government's low-octane approach to boosting young people's life chances?
He'll know that the methodology has changed, and in fact the numbers have stayed relatively flat. He will also know that it is a freedom of all of our citizens that if they are able to work somewhere else, that they may choose to do so, and this government's not going to interfere with that.
Dr. Peter Prinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Happy New Year to you. So, my visit to France with the Home Affairs Select Committee exposed the reality on the beaches. French officers facing pitched battles against violent smuggling gangs to stop hazardous boats launching, and many of the crossings are successfully thwarted. So does the Home Secretary agree that the populist myth that our French partners are simply waving migrants through is not only offensive to those brave officers risking their lives, but undermines the critical intelligence sharing we need to actually address the sinister trade, and that the Sandhurst funding that supports this is money well spent?
I'm grateful to the honourable member for his work in this area and for the Select Committee in general for the work they've done and for their recent visit. My experience of working with France is that they want to solve the shared challenge. There's no silver bullet in doing so, but he mentions ways in which it can be. That's why we've got the one-in, one-out pilot. That's why we've got the ordinary day-to-day intelligence cooperation that we've got as well. We want to do more with our neighbours and solving this problem together.
James McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further to the question from my honourable friend from Cheltenham, does the Home Secretary not appreciate how worrying it is to hear about numbers of young people leaving this country? These people are literally the future of this country. And what measures is her department taking to disincentivise young people from emigrating? Does she agree that the youth mobility scheme with the European Union that would allow young people to work in Europe without needing to take the drastic step of leaving altogether would help?
Well, I think, again, I would repeat the fact that the numbers have stayed relatively flat. I think he's imputing a motive to those individuals that is not yet stood up by any of the data or the evidence. He will know that we are pursuing discussions in relation to a youth mobility scheme with our partners in Europe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Because of antisocial behaviour, including drug dealing and public injecting, Upper Charminster Community Action Group have activated a community safety trigger, and this month we'll be having a case review. I thank them and Queen's Park Councillor Sharon Carr-Brown for their focus on antisocial behaviour. Can the Minister set out what the Government is doing to tackle antisocial behaviour in Bournemouth and beyond?
Minister.
Antisocial behaviour is a scourge that for too long has gone untackled. We are funding hotspot policing in our town centres and other areas where antisocial behaviour is rife, and that is having an impact. Our neighbourhood policing guarantee, which will mean we have 3,000 more police on our streets by next March, will have an impact. We are introducing respect orders, which are going to be a really useful tool to tackle those prolific offenders of antisocial behaviour. But the message has to be loud and clear. We will not accept this behaviour, and the police are responding.
To Kieran Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before Christmas we held a retail crime summit, a cross-party summit in Bexhill to help shopkeepers have their voice heard with the police and local council and attendants. At the same time, Katie Bourne, the Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner, is using criminal behaviour orders in a pilot to tag prolific offenders. I think these are really positive initiatives. Will the Minister agree to meet with us to discuss how we can further roll these things out?
Minister.
Yes, I was really pleased that charges for shop theft have increased by 25% in the year to June 2025, because the police are taking these issues really seriously, are really getting in there, working with our retailers, getting those prolific offenders and tackling this issue. Obviously very pleased always to meet.
Welsh.
And Happy New Year. We have many fantastic businesses in my constituency that are facing the daily struggles of crime. Many shop workers and police are having to face issues with aggressive behaviour and shoplifting. Many of these people that are doing it are repeat offenders and have already been arrested and released for similar crimes. The police are doing all they can, but the system is allowing offenders to return to the exact same place, ensuring the cycle of violence and harassment can continue. When the system is flawed, the community is let down and the police are already overstretched. Does the Minister agree with me that offenders should not be allowed to return to the area and the businesses that they have committed their offences? And will they meet with me, local businesses, local shop workers and local police to find a solution?
Minister.
Yes, my honourable friend is right. 20% of offenders are responsible for 80% of crime, and we need to make sure we're targeting repeat offenders, and the police are. There are a whole raft of tools we can use, but the partnerships with, between the police and the retail sector is really key. Shop theft charges have increased, but we need to look at other things like treatment when people have drug addiction and those issues. But yes, very happy to know.
Alison Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sussex Police is one of the most underfunded forces in England, with officers per resident 27% below the national average. So following the national decrease in police officers during the first year of this government, will the Home Secretary commit to ensuring police officer numbers go up in 2026?
I'll just repeat the statistic that 94% of the fall in officer headcount in 24-25 came in the last 4 months of the last government. Total funding for 2026 to 27 is £18.3 billion, which is a £746 million increase on the previous year.
Cambridge University Press and Assessment have long experience of conducting in-country English tests for those seeking to come to the UK, but they are concerned the Home Office is moving too quickly to a new digital system whereby applicants do not have to attend in person to be tested. They fear that the scope for impersonation remains too high. So will the Minister review this change?
Minister.
The Home Office English language testing procurement has formally launched, but given that there is a live process, I will not comment on that specifically. What I can assure my honourable friend is that the delivery model must meet appropriate integrity requirements.
Blake Stevenson.
Mr. Speaker, nearly 17,000 companies licensed to sponsor worker visas have 5 or fewer employees. Over 3,000 of these have just 1 employee. Ministers have been unable to tell me how many inspections have been made of companies since the general election. How sure is the Home Secretary that these are not bogus companies offering a backdoor to Britain?
Any UK business can apply for a sponsor licence provided they comply with relevant requirements. I will look at this and take this away and come back to you with more detail.
Laura Kirk-Smith.
Mr. Speaker, in light of the appalling anti-Semitic terror attack on Bondi Beach, I know the faith communities in Aylesbury are scared. I welcome the government's funding to protect places of worship, but it doesn't extend to my local Jewish community who don't have their own synagogue. So what further measures will the Minister consider to ensure that all faith communities, even without their own premises, are well protected?
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Home Secretary has said, we were all appalled by the anti-Semitic terror attack at Bondi Beach. And as she will know, all faith communities should be able to worship in peace and without fear. That is why the Government is investing £70.9 million in 2025-2026 to strengthen security at places of worship. Listen very carefully to the point that she's raised. Very happy to discuss it with her further.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Karen Bradley.
As a fellow West Midlands MP, the Home Secretary will be aware that policing in her constituency is incredibly different to policing in Staffordshire Moorlands. So when we get the Police Reform White Paper in a few weeks' time, can she confirm that we won't see any moves to abolish Staffordshire Police, who know how to police Staffordshire Moorlands, and merge them into West Midlands?
Well, she's tempting me into commenting in a way that I know she knows I won't be tempted to do so. She will have to wait, as will everyone else, for the details of our proposals in the policing white paper. But let me assure her that the whole thread that will run through that white paper and the approach that this government and that I will personally take is to ensure that policing is fit for purpose and that it has the outcomes on the ground that the public rightly expect.
Adam Jogi.
Thank you, sir. For my constituents back home in Newcastle-on-Lyme, a crime is a crime wherever it takes place. So can the Minister set out what steps she'll take to ensure that rural crime in Newcastle-on-Lyme and across Staffordshire is always treated with the same urgency as crime that takes place in our town and city centres?
Minister.
Can I thank my honourable friend? Of course, we support and are working with the MPCC on their new rural crime strategy. We are working very closely with local police forces like Thames Valley Police, where they have a rural crime team, and they are tackling these issues. But our neighbourhood policing guarantee applies everywhere. All areas, rural or urban, must have the right number of people in their local community tackling crime.
So David Davis.
It's widely reported that the Home Secretary is a strong supporter of robust reform of the European Court of Human Rights. There are a large number of countries on the European continent who share concerns, our concerns over that. Has she discussed this with any of her opposite numbers? And in particular, where does she see the common interest in reforming the court?
Home Secretary.
Well, these are live discussions that are taking place not just between myself and my counterparts, but other members of the government. He will have noted the political declaration that was achieved at the last meeting at the Council of Europe. That work was led by the Justice Secretary, but was a cross-government effort, and we will continue in that vein because reform of the European Convention, in particular of Article 3, is a key part of our agenda. Domestic reform of Article 8, we will have legislation on in due course.
Chris Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish you and your team a very happy new year. Can I welcome the work the Minister's done on the Defending Democracy Task Force? How can MPs like me and, on a more general sense, political parties get involved in supporting the task force? Because I'm passionate, Mr. Speaker, about representing Harlow and not Moscow.
Well, I'm very grateful to him, and I intend that this work is a shared endeavour right across the House. Members and their team should remain vigilant to the threats to our democracy, particularly in the run-up to this May's elections. I'd like to again encourage take-up of the personal and online security guidance available to all members and staff, and any malicious activity should be reported through the appropriate channels, including by the Parliamentary Security Department.
Sir Poaching.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Home Secretary agree that British citizens should be prioritised over asylum seekers in the allocation of publicly funded housing under the £100 million pilot scheme?
The honourable member may have heard me say earlier, we have started the process of hotel exit, which has meant we've reduced the amount of money that we're spending on that. We want all British citizens to be adequately housed. That's why we released the homelessness strategy that we did at the end of last year. And beyond that, we want to have order and control in our asylum system so that the British people and their proud record of providing shelter can be continued and that people can have confidence in that order and control.
Juliette Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to thank the government for maintaining their 5-year pathway to settlement for Hong Kong B&O visa holders. In my constituency of Broxbourne, I have over 2,500 B&O visa holders. So can the Minister explain how the department will continue to support our Hong Kong residents, and now and in the future? And would he agree to meet with me and my Hong Kong visa holders in Broxbourne to hear about the challenges that they continue to have?
Minister.
We've continued the settlement after 5 years for residents, providing certainty. The new mandatory requirements on income and language we see as sensible. However, it is out for consultation and no firm decision has been made, and it would be a pleasure to meet with you and your constituents.
Timothy.
Mr. Speaker, on the 7th of October, the police told a private meeting they planned to ban Israeli fans from Villa Park. This was, to quote the minutes, in the absence of intelligence. On the 9th of October, they accepted they needed to find a more clear rationale for the decision already made. On the 16th of October, they said they suddenly found significant intelligence for a ban. This supposedly came from a conversation with the Dutch police on the 1st of October, before the first meeting held in the absence of intelligence. Does the Home Secretary believe West Midlands Police, yes or no?
Minister.
I think, as the honourable gentleman knows, we have asked HMIC FRS to look at this. We are waiting to see what they have to say. That is absolutely the right thing to do. Did we disagree with the decision? Yes, we did. Do we want to get to the bottom of what happened? Absolutely, we do.
Patrick Hurley.
In relation to the changes announced at the end of last year to indefinite leave to remain, my constituent Dr Matthew Hewitt advises on an issue relevant to his family and many other families across the country, that the information being put out by government is ambiguous as to whether or not the shorter 5-year route will remain for those currently on partner visas, or whether the baseline changes to 10 years will apply to those currently on those partner visas. I'd be grateful for some clarity on this, please.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for that question. I think the consultation document released under the earned settlement proposals is clear and very clear about what deductions apply in what context and what other hurdles people may have to clear. Maybe he and I should have a conversation to get to the bottom of the particular example that he poses.
Sarah Dyke.
Speaker, rural life, particularly for those in farming communities, is more typically based on traditional roles, which can often see women marginalised in their family role and sadly more likely to be victims of abuse. So can the Minister assure me that with any new strategy on tackling violence against women and girls, women who live rurally will be able to access the support that they need?
Minister.
Just before I say that, say Happy New Year, Mr Speaker. Absolutely, there is the violence against women and girls strategy is for every woman and girl in our country, and there are specific problems that face people in rural communities, and I would gladly work with her and others from rural communities to get that right.
Kim Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and Happy New Year. Does the Minister agree with me that far too much resource is being spent on exceedingly heavy-handed policing of peaceful protests, and is this likely to increase with plans to restrict protests based on their supposed cumulative impact as planned in the up-and-coming crime and policing bill?
Minister.
No, I disagree with my honourable friend on this one. Of course, policing protests is always a balance. We always have to get it right. We have to respect the right to protest, but we have to make sure the police have got the powers that they need to tackle and to make sure that protests can happen peacefully in the way that they have done for so many years in this country.
On congratulating him on his engagement, Ben, the best jet.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. On the 9th of February 2020, the Home Secretary co-signed a letter to the then Prime Minister urging him to suspend a deportation flight to Jamaica for foreign national offenders. Fabian Henry, convicted of grooming and raping 2 young girls, was removed from that flight and is believed to still be living in the UK. Having previously campaigned to keep him in the country, even demanding the flight be halted in this chamber, has she now taken any action as Home Secretary to deport this dangerous child rapist who she helped to remain in the country?
Well, let me say to the honourable gentleman, I signed that letter because one of the individuals was a constituent of mine and he had served in the British Armed Forces for this country, 2 tours of Afghanistan, was British in every meaningful way and should have had his case looked at more specifically by the then Home Office before being placed on that deportation flight. On the specific case, I will look at those details and write to him.
Thank
you, Mr Speaker. We continue to await a Home Office decision on the future of the Gaza Student Scholarship Scheme. Whilst thinking about that, will the government commit to honour the visas of the small number of students and their families who already have funded places to come here but have not yet been permitted to leave Gaza?
Minister. I'm grateful for that question. As the honourable member says, this government has supported achieving scholars and those with fully funded scholarships in Gaza so they come to this country to study during the 25-26 academic year. We know, and I've heard from the honourable member on multiple occasions, there is demand for more. It is, as she knows, a very fluid situation on the ground. We're looking at it closely and seeing what may be done in the future.
Final question, Mohammad.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and a Happy New Year to all. I have a constituent who was in care as a child and was arrested at the age of 11 over 4 decades ago for stealing. This juvenile crime has not been removed from their DBS, even though it is a minor petty crime. And the person believes it has impacted their getting employment in the social care sector, as it appears on their DBS, and is not eligible for removal. Will the Home Secretary give consideration to changes within the DBS filtering framework in relation to petty minor offences committed by children to determine whether such offences should continue to appear on the DBS certificates and later impact employment?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question, and what I would say that there is an independent system that oversees whether access to files from the DBS have been done appropriately, and I'm more than happy if he wants to write to me on this specific case to make sure that that is followed through.
We'll let the front benches change over.